So this week, if you're looking to buy a PC or build a PC, this was a pretty big week as far as hardware goes. We got Nvidia and AMD both revealed their new graphics cards, and AMD also revealed their new line of CPUs. This is the third generation of Ryzen, confusingly called Zen 2.
What? Really?
Of course.
Yes.
Why would they do that? Unbelievable.
The first generation of Ryzen was Zen 1. The second one was Zen Plus.
Oh, boy.
And this is Zen 3.
Fair enough.
Oh, boy.
Anyhow, so this next generation of processors, we'll go over the processors first, really takes aim at Intel in a bunch of different ways. The value proposition of the AMD Ryzen processors is, since their release a couple of years ago, has always been, well, we'll offer you more cores at a much lower price than what Intel can do. But what we can't match Intel at is the high speed of the Intel processors, the actual like 5 gigahertz. We can't hit 5 gigahertz on AMD. They still can't, but they've come much closer. So if you're building a PC for gaming, AMD has really become a much stronger choice. Not only that, but they're so much more robust than what Intel is offering at the same price point. If you do anything besides gaming, let's say you're a content creator and want to stream with a PC or create, videos with a PC, they are much more powerful for that at the same price point than what Intel is offering. So you might take a 5% hit in frame rate, but what you get out of it is much better content creation ability, much better streaming ability, just a more powerful computer in general, which is really interesting. And Intel doesn't have anything on the horizon that even can compete with this, so it's really concerning for Intel.
So what's the price difference right there? Like, let's say
the price difference. So, if you were to look at, let's say a 9900K, which I believe is about $499.
Okay.
If you want the absolute fastest gaming computer, the only thing you're going to use this for is gaming right now, right? That's the processor you go with. That's about $490. It's 8-core, 16-thread Intel processor. For the same price, at $499, AMD is offering 12 cores and 24 threads.
Interesting.
Just like a minor difference in top single core speed.
Really?
Right? They've gotten much better as far as what their boost frequency is and the instructions per clock, to the point where in some games there's no difference. If you're playing at 1080p, there's going to be more differences. If you're playing at 1440p, there's going to be less differences. And obviously, if you're playing at 4K, then you're really relying on your graphics card more than your processor anyway. Yeah. So they're really compelling and they're really priced well. You're getting 4 more cores out of AMD than you're getting out of Intel for the same price. And they're also going kind of going into the high-end desktop range with these new processors. For $750, you can get a 16-core, 32-thread processor that runs pretty damn quick at 4.7 gigahertz. Okay. Which is really fast.
Yeah, that's really fast.
And you can put that on a motherboard, that's anywhere from $100 to $200. And your layout, compared to going with high-end desktop parts from Intel, you're going to be saving thousands of dollars.
Yeah. What does that chip run from AMD?
$749.
Okay.
That's the 3950X.
Okay. So that's their big boy chip right there.
That's their big boy chip. And that's really, I have a Threadripper now that has 16 cores and 32 threads. And that, it's a workhorse. My Threadripper doesn't run at nearly this frequency though.
Right.
So it's quite an impressive chip.
So just to talk about the Ryzen 3000 real quick. This came out yesterday, right? So people have been building their computers. Yesterday. And there's been reports have been piling up that Destiny 2 just doesn't run on Ryzen 3000 computers.
That's a problem.
So it started with one person. It started with one person. We don't know. So far, every other game seems fine, but of course, it's only been, people probably put this together last night, maybe this morning. So maybe it's going to be other games. So Bungie is currently investigating why that is the case, why it's not launching. But yeah, there's currently a Reddit thread that's piling up of people being like, "Yep, doesn't work. Yep, kick for."
I would expect that to be resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
because if it runs on the 2700, it'll run on the 3700. I would imagine pretty quickly.
Yeah. I would expect them to be able to find a fix somewhat quickly. So I wouldn't be too concerned unless it starts coming up that it doesn't work with a ton of games that you play, and then maybe you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to wait for all these companies to bring out a patch."
Yeah, is it
whenever you're first to buy, whenever you're like on the cusp of this kind of stuff, you're always dealing with this stuff because you've got new motherboard drivers, you've got new micro architecture, you've got all sorts of brand new stuff. You wait a couple of months, 3 months, a lot of this stuff is going to be figured out. I remember when I built my first AMD system, it was just like I couldn't overclock it right. It would forget the settings, and like you just got to wait for BIOSes to catch up. And,
that stuff is really common in the PC world. Like even with new graphics cards, you get a brand new graphics card, suddenly the performance is like on par or less than your previous card because they screwed up some sort of driver thing that they have to patch up real quick.
Right.
Then it's patched.
It's always real spooky to get something when it just comes out and you're like, is my whole computer going to explode? Maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, just straight up like adopting brand new technology like that. Yeah. You want to wait. Yeah. If you're concerned about
especially if you rely on it for production.
Yeah,
exactly. Right, like operating systems, right? You don't record you don't get the latest version of Windows. You're like, no, I'll wait a good 2 years.
Oh yeah,
totally.
My Mac that I do all my video production work on, I don't update anything on that unless there is a feature that I want so badly that I'm willing to take the risk that this is going to go down and I'm not going to be able to use it for a while.
It's like when you get the pop-up.
I don't update anything.
Yeah, it's like when you get the pop-up from Nvidia and they're just like, hey, we got a new graphics driver for you. I'm just like, let me just press install and look away. I'm like, come on.
What games does it work for? That's what I look for. What games does it work for? What is this actually doing? Do I need it?
Yeah,
definitely.
A lot of times those are optimizations for new games that I'm not even playing. This weekend I spent the whole day playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which came out, I think, in October. And like at the beginning of the launch for that game, it was a mess, and it was advertised to have ray tracing, but didn't get it until I think like April or something. So you wait a good year, and everything works out pretty well. I mean, that game is fantastic now.
Yeah, for sure. This Ryzen stuff is
the other thing.
I just want to say it's definitely interesting stuff because I'm currently rocking a 6800K i7 for my streaming rig, not my gaming rig.
Yeah.
And that's like almost 3 years old at this point. And I figure at that point, it's good to look at the options and the Ryzen stuff strictly for streaming and video compression and all that. It looks fantastic.
Yeah. One of the problems, I have the Threadripper, right? And one of the things is the core speed of Threadripper isn't as fast as you would get like from equivalent Intel. So it really depends on like the actual application for things that really rely on single threaded workloads. Like Adobe Photoshop is big on this. Threadripper is kind of slow, but for things that can utilize multiple cores like Handbrake, it rips. It just like blows through things. I use Handbrake a ton, and it's nice to see that bar just go whoop.
Right. Instead of coffee break, you can just start working right away.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's good to hear about content creation because I remember like everyone was talking about I think was it the previous generation being like really good for video editing and stuff, but obviously they were still kind of hesitant to adopt it for gaming. But like knowing that it's good across the board now, that might actually make it a more enticing pickup.
I think it's going to be a really attractive option to people who want to stream and game on the same PC because you can get something like the Ryzen 3900 for $500 and you're getting competitive frame rates, but you've got a ton of cores to just devote to OBS for streaming. So you can not only play with good graphics and high frame rates, but you can also send those to your viewer without dropping frames to Twitch, which that's huge, right? It's like you want your experience as a game player to be good, but you also want the viewing experience to be good. A 12-core, 24-thread processor for $500 is pretty damn attractive.
It is.
Comparing that to what Intel's offering.
Yeah.
It's really good.
What does Intel cost if you jump up cores?
If you jump up cores, it gets exponentially more expensive. After you do the i9-9900K, you're into their high-end desktop range, which means higher-end motherboards and way more expensive processors.
Right. So thousands in the processor, and also the motherboard is easily going to run you at $500, $600, $700, maybe more.
It could. I'm sure you can cheap out, but
yeah, you don't really want to when you're buying a processor
put
like that.
$1,000 processor on a $200 motherboard, and
you're asking for trouble there.
If we don't do that.
So AMD and Nvidia both release graphics cards, and the big story here is that they are priced identically and they perform nearly identically. Nvidia has their new Super Series cards. They have the RTX 2060 Super, which I think goes for $350, and the 2070 Super, which I think goes for $500.
No 2080?
Now, these are out of stock everywhere, and these are the Founders Editions, so they're coming right from Nvidia, which means that you're not going to get them at that price. Right?
They not make a 2080?
They didn't make a 2080 Super yet.
Really? Okay.
Unless they did. Did they announce it? Yes, they did. They came out with a 2080 Super as well.
I was about to say, I was like, that's weird.
Yep.
So 2060, 2070, and a 2080, all Super Edition.
What's the difference between like a 2060 that if you currently have a RTX 2060, what's the Super going to give you?
The Super is basically just a faster version, right? It's like the old TI models.
Yeah.
They're just calling them Super this time around, which is really confusing for the 2080 because there's a 2080, a 2080 Super, and a 2080 Ti.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I could no longer just say I have a 2080. They're like, which one? Which
I think the real news. The real news, though, is that these are much better priced than they were.
Okay.
AMD kind of releasing their new series of graphics cards, I think, has forced Nvidia to kind of price their cards more reasonable. When the RTX series first launched, the prices were stratospheric. Like, they were just insane. So now the 2060 being $350, the 2070 Super being, $500. Like, these are good graphics cards at much lower prices than what they initially launched at. And I think that's the big news from Nvidia.
So the Super 2070, what is that comparable to? Is there benchmarks?
It's like a 2080.
Like a 2080. Okay.
So one level up. You're leveling up a level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what happened. Is everybody got a little bit more powerful, but also a little cheaper, which is that's what you want, right?
Yeah,
like, that's
for sure.
perfect.
Yeah.
I'll be interested. I haven't seen a single review of the 2080 Super yet. I'm hoping, because that thing's only $700 on
really?
on Nvidia's website. But it'd be nice if that thing rivals the 2080 Ti, which was like $1,300.
Yeah,
it's still over $1,000 right now.
Yeah, I mean, that thing is super expensive, and it's a year old. So I'm, even being somebody who has a 20 Ti already bought and paid for, like, I'd love the 2080 Super to be as powerful, or, imagine if it was more powerful. That'd be amazing.
Yeah,
that would be insane.
So Nvidia essentially heard the rumblings that AMD is releasing something of a certain power and decided to just essentially like stop sandbagging a little bit to get to that level for cheaper or the same price.
That's what the competition gives you. I mean, they had the market to themselves. The AMD had nothing to compete with Nvidia with, right? It's like there's no product from any other company. So AMD or Nvidia was able to just say, all right, we're going to charge whatever the fuck we want for these things.
Which
they're the best graphics cards. If you want the best graphics cards, you're going to pay what we charge for them. So AMD came out with the 5700 and the 5700X for $350 and $400. I think it was $350 and $400. I'm sorry, the RX 5700 and the 5700 XT. Sorry, I think they're $350 and $400. The XT is just a slightly faster version. Really, these cards are going to pretty much compete with the 2060 Super and the 2070 Super
Okay.
for a little bit less money. But you don't get the features like, ray tracing or, DLSS, which is their super sampling technique, which like basically kind of, it doesn't work the same way, but it has the same effect as like the cross hatch rendering that the consoles are using, where they kind of render two images at a lower resolution, then put them together.
And ray tracing is really good. I don't know if you guys have seen Quake. Yeah. So they took Quake and they ray traced Quake, and it looks like a brand new game. It looks phenomenal with the ray tracing done to it. So I know not a ton of games are adopting ray tracing yet, but when they
next year, there's going to be a lot like Cyberpunk. A lot of the big releases next year are going to have.
It's going to look
ray tracing.
So good. Like ray tracing, genuinely, even from developers were super excited about ray tracing. So it's really cool technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. My guess is that we know that the consoles are going to have ray tracing, right? It's both consoles have come out and said they're going to have ray tracing built in. And we know that also both consoles are going to be using the Navi graphics architecture that is in these current AMD releases, but neither of these current cards, the 5700 or the 5700 XT, have ray tracing in them, or don't have it in their hardware, right? So if you wanted it, you have to use software. My suspicion is that we're going to see another refresh on these cards next year.
Yeah. I'm expecting that.
Because
Super Alpha TI Remix.
Alpha TI Remix.
Well, from Radeon, I would expect from Nvidia too, but from AMD, the fact that these don't have ray tracing in them is very suspicious, considering that we know that they're working on it in this architecture for the consoles.
Yeah, true.
I mean, that's a clickbait title right there. Consoles officially better than PCs?
That is clickbait.
Dun, dun, dun.
Also, these Navi graphics cards, it's the first time that AMD has released these Navi graphics cards. It's the first time we've gotten to see the performance, and it gives us a hint at how powerful the next generation of consoles could be.
Yeah, that's true.
Because this is essentially, the hardware architecture that's going to be in there.
Yeah.
Will it be this fast? I hope so. I hope that we're getting like 2070 like performance out of the consoles.
Yep.
Especially if we're going to be using them
That
for
would
6 to 10 years,
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like the amount of time that's going to be put into those hardwares, it really needs to be up to today's standards.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it holds back the gaming industry. Because they can't develop stuff for that type of hardware if it doesn't exist in those consoles. So everything gets better.
There are some very early reports out of these Radeon graphics cards too, the AMD ones, that they are really good for production work. Like their compute performance is actually like way higher than their gaming performance.
Interesting.
Which most people who review graphics cards only talk about their gaming performance, but you do use graphics cards a lot for rendering.
You do.
3D software, or even for rendering video.
Yeah.
For streaming, right? And use your
for streaming. Yeah, you could use it for streaming too. So it's really interesting. I'm waiting to see what actually comes of that. Are these erroneous reports, or could these be like your best option if you're building like a standalone streaming PC or a video editing PC or a 3D rendering PC? Is to you could conceivably go all AMD for like really affordable money. Get $100 motherboard with a $500
CPU
chip on it. CPU, thank you.
You could just do the $330 one, which is 8 cores, 16. It's basically like the 9900K, but for
and get a $350 graphics card. I mean, that's a really affordable machine that is really powerful.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing like the long-term testing on these Radeon graphics cards.
Yeah, what's the name of the card that's like their flagship one from AMD?
The Radeon 7, which is do not buy.
Sorry, I mean in this generation that they just announced. What's the best one that they
the 5700 XT and the 5700.
Okay, so the XT, got it. And that's
XT is $400.
Wow. I mean that's
still really reasonable.
That's really reasonable for PC gaming. And like that's essentially 1080 Ti level, right? Or close to it?
No. No, it's more like a 1080 probably.
Okay, so if you're doing 1080p gaming for high frames, that's gonna do really well.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, I'd rather go with the Nvidia offering. If I'm just using this thing for gaming, I'd rather go for the Nvidia offering and get some future forward features like ray tracing and DLSS.
Yeah.
Like to me, that makes more sense.
But let's say you're on a
I'd
budget.
be more attracted to a Radeon if I'm really looking for just building a production PC.
Sure. What if you're on a budget, a tight budget, but you'd like to get into PC gaming? What would you recommend right now, based on what they announced?
I'd go with the Nvidia offering.
Yeah,
I'd go with the 2060 Super. It's going to be $400 or $350 or $400.
Really not bad.
And you get ray tracing, you get DLSS. DLSS is, I use DLSS when I'm playing Tomb Raider in 4K because it looks fantastic and it runs super smooth.
I used ray tracing.
That's a really nice feature.
Metro Exodus, and it just looks beautiful. And I have a 2060 that I stream on. I've also played games on it, and it does really well. It does everything that you could want it to do. So having the 2060 Super or the 2070 Super, you're going to be A-okay.
Yeah. But I'm not saying that the Radeon offering is worse. I'm just saying, like, I'd rather just get those extra features if I'm going to spend the equivalent amount of money.
Yeah, for sure. Which,
especially next year when I'm playing Cyberpunk and I want to see what the ray tracing is all about. You might turn it off because take
the frames.
It takes the frames, but if you turn on ray tracing and DLSS, like, it ends up being pretty playable.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing a game that 60 FPS is just fine at, like Tomb Raider, like Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Right.
Like, I don't need 150 frames per second on Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting 6 feet away from my TV with my feet on the coffee table and a controller in my hand.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or I'm playing it on my iPad.
Streaming on your network.
Briar has cracked the system and is now playing games on his iPad.
That's true. I've played like 6 hours of Shadow on my iPad.
That's why you need that bed stand arm to be able to put in front of you while you're in bed.
Yeah.
So
it is a super fascinating time. Intel generally comes out with their new CPUs closer to the fall. But we've known for years now that they're really having trouble getting past this, the architecture that they're on. And they're trying to get down to this 10 nanometer process, but they just keep running into problems. And they've promised it's coming this year, but they've been really quiet about it. So is it actually happening? And if it happens, are they going to be able to hit the, those super high frame rates that they're hitting with this process node that's been worked on for, frankly, like 10 years?
See, that's always the biggest concern, is that if they're going to jump some sort of generation like that, where it's a new architecture, new everything on there, like there's BIOS level issues that arise with the operating system talking to each other, because those things have changed, or they have some sort of hiccup that happens that looks like it's going to be faster, but ends up causing problems on the operating system level. So you usually have like a year or two before all those are fleshed out in the real world,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you're building a new PC right now, it just got cheaper and more powerful.
Yeah.
That's what happened, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I just wish Nvidia wouldn't sandbag as much. It's a little annoying.
Well, I wish that AMD could compete at the high end, especially. Like there's still nothing competing with the 2080 Ti. Like it's just,
maybe that's what it is. If AMD could finally challenge Nvidia, then they would be like, okay, let's release our next stuff even better and make it even more attractive.
Yeah, the concerning thing, even with this new architecture, with this Navi architecture that they're using for the 5700, it's still drawing more power than what Nvidia is doing, and they've shrunk their process down to, I think, 7 nanometers, and Nvidia is still on the old architecture that's like 12 nanometers. So they haven't. Nvidia is still like a generation behind in that way. And even with the new process, AMD's having trouble just keeping up.
Interesting.
So, it'll be interesting when Nvidia comes out for their next generation of cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Theoretically, they'll shrink down to 7 nanometers and have a more efficient, it'll be more efficient, faster, cooler, and take less power.
Yeah. It's exciting. It's good for us. Good for gamers.
It is good for us.
It's very good.